It's Tuesday at 2 o'clock EST, which means it must be time for Comic Industry Insiders Live. My name is Adam Freeman. Once again, we are here for a tight 1 hour where we're going to talk about all the things that have happened in the comic book industry in the last, well, actually, we can't even cover all of it. It's been an eventful week. This week, normally, my co-host is a man named Brian Garside, and he does an incredible job of that, which you will see because now we're going to have to figure out how to do it without him. We're going to see how great he was at it. So, but luckily for you, I will not be here alone. As when I told my wife that this was happening, she said, wait a minute, you're going to sit there and talk for an hour? No, lucky you, you're not. This week, we have a very good friend of mine, somebody I work with on a daily basis, someone who it has been my pleasure to get to know over the past couple years. The Eisner Award-winning editor, the writer, the marketer, the man of many, many hats in comics, Mr. Joe Keating.
Hello, sir. Thank you for having me. It's a thrill to be talking in this capacity. This crazy week on which it is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. I know. Exactly. What a week we're having. It's Tuesday. Hey, Spike. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So, Joe. Good. So, Joe, buddy, how has you have been watching this from the outside? You and I talk on a regular basis, but tell the audience a little bit about your history and in the comics industry and how this time feels different than all the rest of it.
Yeah, well, so I started in 2004 was my first professional. I mean, I've been reading comics my whole life, but my first professional credits were in 2004. So it was the Diamond era since before I started till, last year before, whatever, yeah. COVID really, and so that was always what existed. And whether it was when I was working just as a creator or when I worked at a comic book publisher from 2004 to 2010, it was always Diamond. That was it. That was the one. That was the primary option. Yeah. And then, working as a creator and seeing the advent of all these different new channels coming in, and just also like as a historian and loving, the history of comics and the history. I always say the history of comics, the history of distribution, and we're living a lot of history right now.
We're living a lot of history right now.
It's wild times. Yeah.
Speaking of history makers, we actually have a special guest coming here in just a little bit that I'm going to leave it as a surprise because I think you guys are going to really like this one. Someone who has shaped comics, and as you said, the history of comics is a history of distribution, and this person has shaped that history, has shaped the history of comics, right? Yeah. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but let's start with the rundown, shall we? This we're gonna cover a lot this week. Let me see if I can't. There we go. Hell, that's better. We're gonna do this week at Diamond Comics. Oh shoot! I realized I just put her name in there. We're gonna talk to Christina Merkler from Lunar Distribution. Damn it! See, when Brian's here, this goes much smoother. I hope.
Surprise,
Brian. Yeah. Anyway. And finally, so you want to be a distributor. We're seeing a lot of people trying to enter this space. It is, inarguably a wonderful business to be in. I think it's an incredible spot, but I spent a little bit of time late last week thinking about all the things that you really need to do in order to do this kind of work well. And so we're going to run through those. So let's dig in, shall we? Let's start with our friends over at Diamond Comics and their ongoing drama, their ongoing telenovela. We're going to get to that every week, though. I do the newsletter, the Prana Bullet. This is something that my team at Prana and I put together. It's a rundown of all the stories that are important for the week. It also gives us an opportunity to kind of talk about what's happening and give context. It's the kind of thing that we give our clients. And it's also the place where we do a lot of announcements of the clients that we work with, including Recca Publishing, who has a new book out this week. You should be going to stores to pick up The Future Is because Joe here was one of the editors. That's that's definitely not in the script. All right. And hit the monthly newsletter sign up, and we'll get you on the very next one. Goes out every Friday. All right. Let's dig into what happened with our friends at Diamond. this week we found out that Dynamite's missing $500,000, which makes a lot more sense now that we have seen Nicky selling off some of his highly prized art. Buddy, I feel for you. Get through it. You're going to be strong. You're going to make it. You're going to make it through the rain. Senior staffers moving to Alliance Distribution and Universal. So we're starting to see some of that institutional knowledge spread around. And finally, Udon halts all their shipments to Diamond. That was a big story this week because they were right in the middle of something big, and we'll actually get into that. All right, Joe, can you imagine? I mean, I don't know about you, buddy, but if I'm missing $500,000, that might hurt. It might slow me down a little.
It's gonna hurt. I have a lot of faith. I'm very bullish on Dynamite and extremely bullish on Nicky. That guy. I'm talking about the history of comics and history of distribution. Like, I remember that guy hustling comics on the Home Shopping Network. I remember him I worked with him for a little bit when he was when he had primarily Dynamic Forces, and we did American Flag, and then how he's built Dynamite over the years. So I'm extremely confident he'll make it through this. But no matter who you are, $500,000 is going to hurt, and I can only imagine stacking up. Now we're entering June now. I mean,
no question.
200,000 1 month alone is
Nicky is on my list for Comic Industry Insiders, the podcast that we do once a week. Which, by the way, we're announcing this week. We're taking a hiatus for the month. If you're a subscriber, we won't have any new ones this month. We just had to have some time to build up, and frankly, I'm moving. As you can see, there's lumber here. Anyway, all this to say, Nicky has been high on my list of people I wanted.
Oh, yeah.
How I want to get his story, man. That's a guy who legitimately started hooking long boxes into the back of a truck for a guy for I don't know how much per hour. Like, that's where he started, and everything built up from that. Dude's a hustler. And speaking of, Nick would also be stepping in to say, if you haven't already, why have you not subscribed, and hit the alert button? He's always in the comments reminding me to say that. So
he's right.
Subscribe, and hit the alert button. He's and a big benefactor of this network, of the Experience Network. He's a huge. Yes. Yes, indeed. We've all gotten some gray hair. Before I go too far off of it, I do want to say, Spike, we do once a month, we do go through some of the sales charts on the Prana Bullet. So make sure to be here next week when we are talking about that. All right. Well, I think that if anything, we did hear that Diamond also got another round of funding, another round of loans to get them through this period. So hopefully Nick and the crew are going to get some of that back here real soon, because we're rooting for you, my friend.
100%.
All right. Next up, Alliance Entertainment hires 7 from Diamond. That's a big chunk for somebody who we thought they were going to buy Diamond Comics, and then they did not end up buying Diamond Comics, and there ends up being a whole lot of back and forth. And we've covered that ad nauseum. We've covered that ad populum on this show. Feel free to go back and watch other episodes. But this is a big move for them, right? They're going in. Essentially, it looks like they're coming into this space anyway, with or without.
Yeah, no, this is a huge investment into the comic space. I mean, no matter look at Mike Schimmel alone. It's not just that he was a VP at Diamond. He goes back to Capital. Like these are people who know how comic book distribution is actually built. So, I mean, I'm just reading the tea leaves here. I have no other insight beyond what's public. But you look at these names, and you can guess the cost and add it all up. This is a company that it cares about comics distribution in some form or another. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it builds out from here.
Mike Schimmel, I think, he's named up top here. I've known Mike now for probably 20, 30 years. And when I got to know him, he was the outside sales team at Diamond, which meant that they were sending people out into the field to work, to talk with comic shops and sell more product and grow the number of comic shops out there. So the dude has been all over. He has worked his way through the sales staff and he's a hustler. That's for sure. That actually leads us to Universal Distribution. Now, this is a really interesting piece of information, because what it says to me is, it says a lot of things, but to give you some context, to give a history again, Diamond Comics ends up selling out of bankruptcy to two different organizations. Universal Distribution, the Canadian distributor who has been trying to enter the US market for a while. And then it seemingly, kind of reading behind the scenes, it seemed that they had to partner up with Ad Populum, the they're a big company that owns a lot of smaller companies, mostly in toys and that sort of consumer products. Ad Populum seemingly owns DCD. In fact, they've made announcements on behalf of DCD saying we are now the owners of this. We're keeping all of the wheels on the train. Everything is moving. But their partner in this buy, Universal Distribution, is hiring up the staff, the key staff. Now, we're not talking about who. On this, we kind of those behind the scenes, we've heard from some names. I don't want to turn over that hold card for them, but I think that they are some of the people that I would hire. They're definitely on the list of people that I would hire as the ones that they are kept on if I were trying to run a pretty major comic book distributor. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. I think it is interesting to see that. I mean, is it possible? I don't know, Joe, you've been in this as long as I have. Is it possible that we're seeing Ad Populum and Universal? Are they going to go head to head, or is this like I mean, this has got to be sort of a name switch. I don't know. I don't even really know what to make of this.
I believe in the future where it is. Like comics were at its best. I mean, like, everyone goes back to like 1986. We talk about that a lot, and there were a lot of distribution choices back then. I think it only benefits comics to have more players. And I'll say in a more present day, I am really encouraged by the names that I am hearing that are coming from Diamond, because a lot of really good people are now staying in the industry, which I'm really excited to hear. So yes, obviously we need good work to for those distributors to be distributing, but I think it's coming, and a lot of it's here. So good time.
I think it's also, it says a lot that I always make a joke that comics will never, once you reach a certain level of skill and experience in this world, comics won't let you leave.
Yeah, I thought I was out. Like, keep pulling me back in.
I know. You tried going to video games, right? So
I love this stuff too much. And that's the thing about with comics people, not only is there an incredible knowledge base, but a lot of people that you talk about at Diamond and now that they're spreading around, the distributors, they get this space and they love this space, and comics definitely needs that. Comics needs people to know how all this was actually built. So I'm really excited to.
That's truly the case. And like I said, some of the people they're keeping are some of my favorite people in the world. So I'm looking forward to that. Finally, bad news from Diamond. We heard that Udon, who is shipping out in the process of shipping out Mega Men Timelines, decided to halt all shipments to Diamond. Now, this has a whole lot to do with getting payments, not getting payments. It has a whole lot to do with who is consistently shipping and who's not. You and I, Joe, we have a project called The Future Is that we're doing for Recca Publishing, and we went exclusive with Lunar for that project because we knew we had to be out in a certain time, right? And we weren't sure that Diamond was going to be able to do that for us. So, there's a lot of reasons why you would move away from Diamond in this time, but hopefully that is just a temporary setback. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Udon's got a lot of smart people. I'm sure this is just a good move to keep product flowing. And again, I'm really. It's really easy to talk about the sky falling, but I am encouraged about the long tail of all this, and the long tail for companies like Udon. It's a good move.
You and me both. I think it does say a whole lot about the number of people, the number of big companies that are coming into comics and spending money here, trying to figure this out. Like there's the investment alone. Is here, but because of Udon's decision to go exclusively with Lunar, and because we're talking so much about distribution this week, we thought it would be good to actually bring somebody who understood how all this shit works, and not just two bearded guys who pretend that. So I wanted to bring up legitimately one of the smartest people I've ever met in this industry. In fact, more than once I've said to folks, I don't know a lot about comics, but I do know never bet against Christina Merkler. And you can attribute. I've said that in
100%.
meetings.
Oh yeah.
So Christina and her partner Cameron started DCBS, which quickly became the single biggest retailer of single issue comics in the US. They, during COVID, were able to, they temporarily stepped in to be the distributors of DC and a couple others in order to help get product moving during COVID. And that spawned Lunar Distribution, which has become a staple. If anything, during a period where Diamond is going bankrupt, if we hadn't had this, man, who knows? Would we have comics? So I'd love to bring to the stage, Kyle, that's your cue, Miss Christina Merkler. And you are on mute. I can see that little, you are. She knows where all the buttons work in distribution, but oh, there she is.
Right on.
I was like, where is the unmute on this? It's literally right in front of my face.
Right, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for, I know that you said that you were struggling with your voice, and I can hear that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being here. It's
Sure.
It's been a crazy time, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah, you could say that.
Do you feel like the person who set up the dominoes? Do you ever think, you know, if I just said, nah, I'm going to go take a break during COVID, none of this would have happened? Do you ever get that feeling maybe?
No, actually, I thank God every day that I did it, because I probably wouldn't be in business right now. So
no doubt.
And a lot of us probably wouldn't be in business if it weren't for DC. And I will take that to my grave. Like, DC is the one who saved the direct market as far as I'm concerned. No, I mean, yeah, the last few months I've questioned a lot of stuff, but no, I mean, it's what happens when competitors come into the marketplace and people, really start making decisions that are better for other people, even behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think everybody has had to, the development in the systems have been put in place it's just remarkable how quickly that is all moving now. And it's really genuinely because everybody who is on the field you must develop, right? We must make this better, right?
Yeah.
So I can tell you, having worked with Lunar now for a while, I can tell you how much I've enjoyed the experience and the team that really wants to do this right. So it's, good job there. Can you give us some color on this udon situation? Obviously, there's a bit of a clumsy handoff that happens for everybody. How did this come about, and what is the plan for retailers in this launch, this Mega Man launch? Do you know?
Well, I just caught up with Eric yesterday from Udon. I mean, really, any time that somebody is dealing with a decision to leave a distributor is difficult, right? When we initially spoke to them and they were just looking at their options and they said, hey, we want to just go ahead and add you as an option as a distributor. They were incredibly loyal to Diamond. They had worked with Diamond for 25 years. And, they were generally happy with what was happening with Diamond. And, when I spoke to him yesterday, he just was like, look, I don't, I think everyone just doesn't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's not a whole lot of communication happening. I mean, even as a retailer of Diamond, I have zero communication. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm getting. I don't know what's getting canceled. I have things that aren't being filled. And so when a publisher sees another publisher say, hey, I haven't been paid for $500,000, you're going to get real nervous. And so I know that, he didn't speak to me about saying that he was leaving Diamond altogether. Because I think he was still kind of making that decision, but you're saying like it was announced and everything. We didn't discuss that. He just discussed, look, I want to make sure we get our full slate over to you. You know, we have this much manga, we have this much in trade paperbacks, and we'd like you to start carrying them. And so that's what we're going to do. You know, unfortunately, I do not have a never-ending warehouse. It's actually fortunately and unfortunately, right? So I said, okay, you know, we can do that, but you know, we're going to have to, you know, put little by little in, which is what we're doing with Abrams. It's what we're doing with Scholastic. You know, because I can't throw extra several hundred units at the warehouse every single week and expect them to do things the way that we've been doing them, which is really well.
Sure.
And we have an auxiliary warehouse that we were supposed to move into 2 weeks ago that because of inspections and whatever else, you know, didn't happen. And so we're, you know, a couple of weeks behind on just moving some excess inventory out to make sure we can, you know, get this pick line righted to adding, you know, 50 to 100 more SKUs every week. And it's, yeah, and that's a lot, you know. So we are of the mind that we don't want to be the biggest, we just want to be the best. So there are a lot of publishers who I will probably never carry, and it's not that I don't think they're good publishers, it's just that I only have so much bandwidth and the team only has so much ability to do it exactly right in the best way. And there sometimes it just doesn't make sense for us.
So I would love to go back and unpack some of the stuff that you just hit on. What would you say when you look back on this whole experience, like where were the big growth moments for you? Obviously, a lot of this has been forced on you, but I know that, you know, you made some very intentional moves, as you just said, not being the biggest, being the best. I know from dealing with retailers that your shipping has always been top notch, that your negotiated rates have always been really excellent. But can you talk about some of the intentions behind those things, and you know, maybe where your intentions had to be reshaped by the reality?
Hey, yeah, because they sure did. They got reshaped real quick this last few months. You know, I mean, when you go from, you know, 4 employees in the beginning to 30, and then now we're at 120, it's not an easy road. It's, you know, it's a lot different, even type of culture in the warehouse at this point when you have that many people. And then I'm, you know, more forklifts and order pickers, and then you kind of have to change your whole idea. Initially, you know, obviously DC, we gave ourselves a full year of having DC before we took any publishers on. And then our first publisher was Scout, and they were an easy, you know, like to flow into the system. Then we weren't trying to like get a hold of I mean, we wanted more publishers, but we also were like, okay, we feel good about DC. Now we feel good about Scout. Okay. And we'd always had people reaching out. But I mean, I can tell you there are a lot of publishers who know how to make a book. They just don't know all of the other things that go into actually getting it through a distributor and it actually working properly. So, you know, we had to like look at, okay, whoever reached out to us, we had to really take a look at, you know, how well they sell. Even we would go and check the DCBS system in stock trades because it's a good gauge of the market because we're big enough. And then we would say, yeah, actually they make sense, I think. And we would also say, well, I don't need all of these publishers that only do this type of product, right? We need someone we needed a Fantagraphics. We wanted an Oni. We wanted, you know, people who would create a better mix for our retailers so they have a better selection within their stores. We did the same for like when we added Pow Pow. We were like, this is fantastic. They're a lot like a Drawn and Quarterly. And that's actually how we got Drawn and Quarterly. So we're trying to be super mindful of that.
Kyle, help. I pushed the wrong button. Okay, thank you. I shouldn't push any buttons. I should let Kyle push the buttons.
Isn't that what
yeah.
you don't pay me for?
I know, exactly. God damn it. Anyway. So, yeah, and that I think that intentionality in bringing in who you were bringing in and not going too far out over your skis, I think that definitely showed up in the work that you've been producing. Where were the big stumbling blocks? What do you think, if you look back, again, be as honest about this or as political as you want, but like you had to have, I mean, it had to be moments where you went, all right, well, we got that wrong.
Oh yeah, like every day, right? You know, like every day you go, okay, lesson learned on that one. You know, like we never have ever said that we know how to distribute comics. We never intended to. And so we're learning and we're just trying to figure it out. And every day is, you know, a learning experience for us. But I can say, like, probably the biggest change and the biggest thing that like threw us for a loop was taking on Image. And it wasn't Image as a publisher. It's just that, you know, they have the size of backlist that DC has.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they sell a heavy amount of backlists as well. And it was difficult getting Diamond to like get us the stuff. It took well over a year. And their pack lists weren't exactly accurate. And they didn't come in the greatest condition or packed well. So that was a difficult thing for us to deal with. And so there was a lot of like double and triple work trying to get Image in and accurate. And it was really just because it didn't come in well. By no fault of Image. It was just, you know, and I'm not trying to badmouth Diamond. I've always been a Diamond advocate. You know that about me.
True.
I have always had great service from Diamond as a retailer. But this was a whole different, you know, view of Diamond that I had. You know, now we've gotten past it, and, you know, but it also filled up my warehouse. So then the Diamond thing couldn't have come at a worse time for me, because we were planning, you know, on purchasing land and building a building and really like being proactive in our growth. And I had, you know, I knew that there were things that weren't quite right with Diamond, but I didn't know it would happen so quickly. So that was the thing that threw us most for a loop, because then you have 100 publishers that come to you, and then everyone wants you to be the savior of the industry, and you just can't be.
Right.
Yeah, or the savior of publishing, I guess, right? And we just couldn't. I just like I had to. I mean, they forwarded me probably 20 emails a day on people just saying, "Hey, yeah."
No hyperbole.
And
20 emails a day. I believe that.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's difficult because like, I'm like, okay, I've never heard of them. And then you know, it's a lot of processing of looking at their site and seeing what the capability is. And, you know, and the thing is, you know, we want to be the nice guys. Like, we want to encourage everyone, but then it reaches a point where when you're taking care of some publishers and their numbers that are coming in are like, what are we doing here? Right. And I'm sure that's what Diamond reached at some point, where they're like, look, we're going to have to put minimums in place. We're going to, and that's what we're starting now. We have to limit the number of covers they're offering, because I can't put 7 covers up and then I get orders for like 150 for a cover. Like, it doesn't make efficient warehouse sense. When you have people on a big pick line, you know, picking, you know, we want to pick 5 copies or 10 copies, or, you know, ideally, right? Because that's the only way you even break even in distribution. And by the way, not a big money maker, distribution. If you think retailing is bad, try distributing. It's even worse.
You keep picking it though. You keep doubling down on this. I figure you might have figured it out somehow, is my guess.
We did, but it's tough, right? Like, it's everything. It's, you know, okay, how do you become more efficient? How do you every manual process needs to become a not man, like it has to be automated in some way. As soon as you get manual, that's where you make mistakes. We said this for 26 years at DCBS.
Right.
As soon as a customer wants an exception for something, that's all you're doing is setting yourself up to make a mistake, because you have human beings working here. We aren't robots. People are going to make mistakes. And retailers are not great, big, forgiving people, generally speaking. So, you try your best.
What are you talking about? I have never
Yeah.
had a retailer.
There are some that are great. I mean, and most are great, I should say, really.
Truly.
But like anything in any industry, period, you're going to have people who you can never do it right. It's never going to, you're never going to satisfy them. So, you just keep trying.
Well, they may never tell you when they're satisfied. They're always going to tell you when they're unsatisfied, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like any customer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I can tell you it's been wonderful watching you guys kind of take those reins and I mean, obviously you can't be there for everyone. There is a limit to space, right? Space is the key, right? It's a real estate question at the end of the day. So, so when you're looking now at small press, independent press, when they come to you, what does a publisher who would fit for you? What do they look like?
I just talked to one the other day, and I said a publisher that listens to feedback, because we know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's important. I mean, we do know what we're talking about. We receive all the feedback from our retailers. And I'm not saying that you have to unilaterally always listen to whatever we say, but when we provide feedback, it's not to be critical. It's to be like to provide feedback so they're successful.
Right.
So I want a publisher who treats us more like a partner than just somebody who's taking care of we feel very family oriented here, and we feel that way with our publishers. Like they're a part of our family, and we're all in this together to, sell as many comics as possible. And by doing that, we have to take care of our retailers. We have to make sure that they receive everything they need to receive so they can make the best decision that they can make. And we need to make it as easy for them as possible to make those decisions and to be able to place those orders. So, that's as easy as it gets. Ideally, you have something where and I know I saw this in your newsletter, and I was like, I said this for 7 million years, is like, you have to be consistent. You have to, you have to always manage your customers' expectations. And how you do that, be consistent. If you put out good product consistently, you are going to be successful. It is not rocket science. It really is that simple.
You have to keep showing up, and you have to keep showing up in the same way. The show's a fine example. When I knew that we were losing Brian for the day, there was a moment of, do we just cancel? No, you don't cancel. You show up. Yeah. You show up on Tuesday at 2:00, and you do the work. For you guys, the box shows up the same way every time, and when you're dealing with a vendor, it shows up the same way every time. Right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly, I love the analogy that, you don't want to hear from your surgeon who is about to, do your heart transplant. I'm just really not feeling it today. Right. The market professional is somebody who shows up no matter how they feel. Right. That's exactly what it means. Yeah. So, well, that's really, thank you for that, because I think there is obviously a lot of pressure, a lot of concern from the small press about how they're going to be distributed. When you talk to somebody who is maybe not ready to go into the direct market, maybe you feel like they're not going to sell well enough, or whatever, you have to make those decisions, because as you said, you are dealing with atoms, not electrons, right? You have to find homes for their product. What advice do you give to a publisher who comes to you and says, hey, I really want to go into the comic shops. Can I get distributed? But they're not ready. Do you have anything that you say to them?
No, I'm too nice. It's really hard to hurt someone's feelings.
Yeah,
it is. Usually I will say we don't have room. And
Yeah.
and it is true. Like that's the thing that I've been able to say because it is absolutely the truth. What I have said in the past is like, we're not quite ready for you. Let me, please reach out 6 months from now. I can let you know. Just recently I told everyone, we were going to be ready in June, and now the warehouse is delayed. But I had given myself, I said, hey, reach out to me in July. Now I'm hoping by mid-July, I even know, what I have the capability of. But the thing that I can say to any publisher is there are other avenues, like Kickstarter. And I hear there's a Filbo distribution that was started.
Heard about that.
I don't know how feasible that is for the average retailer. But I think that there are other ways you can self-distribute and self-promote that, it may actually be easier for you than trying to go with a big distribution company. And I think a lot of publishers feel like they have to be distributed because,
Looks like we're cutting out. Hopefully this is not an indicator of a problem.
spinning. Okay. Are we good? Okay.
I can hear you now.
Are we good?
There you go.
Yeah,
there
we're good
you
now,
go.
We had 140 publishers we were carrying because between Lunar and PRH and Diamond. And at one point last year, I said to Cameron, I was like, look, this doesn't make sense. Like the bottom 100 publishers, I might sell 1 or 2 items from. And it doesn't make sense for the average retailer to do that. There's no profit in that. There's no, and I think that if we were to take all 100 publishers on, it would be the same thing. They would just be lost in the shuffle. And I don't think they have the ability to really, get seen by those stores anyway. So although they want it, it's probably not in their best interest. And it's a lot of work to get solicitation files to us and make sure the covers are ready on time and so figure it out with their printer. Like it's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of process that gets those books to the stores that a lot of people aren't aware of. So I think sometimes it's better to just do it yourself when you are that small. If you're going to sell 500 to 1,000 copies of a book, that's where you start saying, okay, I should be distributed at this point, because then you have the potential to maybe double that because you have a greater exposure within the market. But if you're selling less than 100 copies or even 300 copies of a single issue book, it's probably in your best interest to just do it yourself.
You know what? I love that because it's concrete, right?
Yep.
It's if you are under 300 copies, time to grow your audience, time to grow your product, focus in on what you do and make it good, right? Joe, you and I talk about this a lot about, it is about refinement.
Yeah, it's about refinement. And first thing, I really appreciate all your insight. It's really great to hear because I talk with creators every single day about a lot of them want to be entrepreneurs and do it themselves. And you're talking the units you're talking about. But what I love about the structure that you laid out is like, okay, make yourself undeniable. Like go through Kickstarter, go through wherever, and then go to the point where Lunar hears about you, and or whoever hears about you. And I don't know, creatively, I'm excited to be back in comics now because I feel like between what you all did, and thank you so much. I'll say this is someone making his living in this industry. Thank you so much. A lot of credit DC, but you picked up the phone. You said, "All right, we'll do this." You did it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's really exciting. It's difficult, like you said. It's a lot of hard work. You don't want to do a lot of hard work, you're in trouble. But we're talking before the show. A couple of guys in Northampton, Massachusetts, did a lot of hard work and they created turtles. You know what I mean? And they didn't start off with huge distribution. They were hand sewing.
Right.
So who's that now? So
and those were people that really did focus on they did focus on creating a brand and creating a product and creating something that was refined. What's that? What do you have in the background there?
Or
It's my ghost machine hat.
Yes, of
And a
course.
little note
Yeah.
from Jeff, which
Aw.
is great. Yeah. We love Ghost Machine. They're great.
Bye, Danny. Thanks. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I think that
Of
this
course.
has been short but gold. If you don't mind, I'm going to run through some advice I have for anybody who wants to enter distribution. And I'd love if you can stick around for just a couple minutes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. This is something I shared in our newsletter, but if not, thank you. I'm going to go ahead. Kyle, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here. And we're going to talk about why anybody would want to be a comics distributor. I don't know, Joe. Apparently, so where this came from, Joe, was when the Diamond bankruptcy was announced. I got pulled into, I think it was right at 12 different meetings, different people who wanted to handle small press distribution. And each one of them had a slightly different view, and some of them had some newer ideas. But none of them really knew how difficult this was going to be.
Mhm.
And so it became my job to say to them, yeah, this sucks, man. I don't know if you want this gig, because here's some of the things you're gonna have to think about. So I put together this slide. I'm gonna jump over there. All right. So there are basically 8 questions you need to solve, problems that you need to solve if you want to go into this problem. And the number one is real estate. There's a reason that Christina lives in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There's a reason that the big diamond warehouse was in Olive Branch, Mississippi. It's because of 2 things. One, the real estate there is affordable enough to buy huge warehouses to put product away. And you can grow because there is more real estate available. And even then, you hear Christina talking about how difficult that is. It's so incredibly challenging to even move into a new warehouse. So make sure that you're in a place where you're at least partially set up for success. Also, both of those places have their shipping hubs, right? So you can ship out to all over the country in a much more efficient manner than you are, let's say, if you're on one coast or the other. The next is single issue shipping is a pain in the ass. Anybody who has ever done this, anybody who has ever fulfilled a Kickstarter, or anybody who's ever worked with what is known as a 3PL or third-party logistics company, or just a big box fulfillment house that is used to putting hardcovers into things or just toy boxes into other boxes, they all tell you they can handle single issues, and they all lie because they don't know how difficult it is to create a product, to get a product from point A to point B in a condition that a comics fan would want to buy. Number 3 is discounts. Now, I'm going to make this real clear. If you don't have a path for a retailer to get a 50% discount on that product, you are not going to succeed. Now, I'm not saying that all the product needs to be 50% off, but there needs to be, if there's a certain amount of volume and the retailer is ordering enough and they're in good standing, and maybe however many hurdles you want to put in their way, they have to be able to what is known as keystone. So they have to be able to double their money, because it's the only way they're actually going to make a profit on the product that you're distributing. Number 4, weekly comics shipping is essential. For comics single issues, you cannot get away from this. It is the pattern people show up. It is arguably the value proposition of the comic shop, is the ability to be there in place when people come once a week to pick up books. And so as a distributor, you need to be able to fulfill on a weekly basis. This means you're going to end up having to get at least one of the major publishers, like say Udon, or even Dynamite is, I don't know, he hasn't found his spot yet. Somebody who's shipping product once a week. The problem that you have there is all of the other bigger distributors also want these companies because they do create more volume. So you're going to need to have at least one of those. Otherwise, single issue shipping it's going to be real hard. You're not going to need depth of inventory for restocks. This goes back to the real estate question, meaning that you're going to have in single issue, especially small press, independent press, it takes longer for discovery. So if you don't have inventory, the retailer won't be able to reorder. So they're going to have to order everything up front, which means that they'll sell out and they'll never be able to sell it again. So you're going to have to be their inventory. And that goes back to real estate, having plenty of room for all of that product to sit and wait for its turn on the long tail. as Christina mentioned, some of these only move once a year. You have to have it in stock for when that happens. And you need to be doing consolidated shipping. This is really more for, I would say, probably 3 or 4 of those dozen that I spoke to. They were tech companies who wanted to create platforms or marketplaces where a publisher lists their stuff and then a retailer can order it and the publisher ships directly to the retailer. The problem with this is, as Christina pointed out, we're talking about some of these publishers, you're going to move 1 or 2 copies a year. Well, does that mean you just hold it until you can order enough to make the minimum? No. It means that the retailer is never going to actually order from that publisher. I heard from a publisher who announced, let's say not too long ago at a major event, that they were, as a result of all this, they just decided they were going to direct ship. And they made a big deal out of it. They bought advertising and marketing, and they bought sponsorships to talk about the fact they were direct shipping to retailers, and they got 4 retailers buying directly from them. That's what you're down for. So if you are trying to create a marketplace that where the retailer is shipping direct, it just is not going to be efficient and it won't work. Technology and data. We live in a time where metadata carries everything. Metadata gave a little bump to a project that Joe and I are working on. We had a little problem with some metadata, and as a result, like, it threw our plans into a tizzy, but we were able to fix them. But that's only because we spent so much time understanding how the systems work. If you don't understand how the metadata works, if you haven't been watching this show for a while and heard us talking about the Comet standard and how to work with POS systems and how to work with distributor metadata and data back and forth and reporting back and forth, you probably want to go find something else to do with your day. And finally, curation. As Christina pointed out, they work in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They had one of the biggest warehouses shipping out product in the world. They're still ordering more and more, or trying to get more and more warehouse space so they can create more. They still have to turn people away. You will have to turn people away. And whether you're turning them away because they don't sell or just turning them away because you don't like them culturally, I don't know. You're going to have to make those choices. And if you're not ready to make those choices, once again, publishing is fun. You go do that instead. Okay. That is my quick rundown of the things I would be really interested in if you wanted to do distribution. I don't know, Joe. Am I full of shit?
No, this is great, but there's a really key one missing. It's a through line to the Universal News. They have popular news and about Lunar. And I'm not saying this with Pollyanna. This is just the way it is. This is true. You need a really good team. Like, look at the people that Universal is bringing on. Alliance is bringing on is very methodical, right? Like the Lunar team we work with directly, like the people who really know this business. They really know product, like she was talking about, like with curation, for instance, and who to bring on, and have DC have a year. You need people who know to make those decisions on your side. If you're going in, you're just gonna, hopefully wish for the best. That's not going to work, because all 8 fall apart without a team who knows what they're doing. So, and
I would argue that, in my original essay about this, I said, like, if you don't have this, you need to hire for it. 100%. And that's okay. It's okay to not be good at everything. You don't have to be good at everything, but you do have to have a team. I'm going to add Christina back into here. What did how'd I do?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Honestly, depth of inventory for restocks is a tough one.
Yeah.
Because you don't know initially when you are distributing, like, what you're going to need. If you have somebody like a DC or an Image, right? And they're monitoring that, and that's great. But we even struggle, and we still are working through these, like, okay, we send weekly inventory reports to all of our smaller publishers. But they also have to monitor it. And if they're monitoring it with 3 other distributors, it's difficult. I think that is the one thing you're probably missing, is that even if you want to distribute, you have to realize you're not going to necessarily be the only one that publisher's working with. And so you aren't the only person that they're going to be having to give data to and covers to and any changes to. And we've seen that a lot over the last 5 years, is where a publisher will give it to us and maybe not the other distributor, or vice versa. And it's difficult because then you have customers reaching out saying what's right, what's, that type of thing. So as a distributor, you also have to manage your retailers and you have to manage your publishers. It's much more difficult because you're the middle guy for them, and you have to keep both of them happy, and it's not always as easy as some make it look.
I've always so my job started off in sales in publishing, and now just kind of I wear lots of hats. Joe, as an editor, I always, as I got to know editors from being the sales guy, I always realized that we had the same job.
Yeah,
our job was just as a translator, right? My job as the sales guy was to translate the needs and or message of the publisher to the retailer. Whereas Joe's job, the editor's job, is to translate those same needs or messaging to the creators, right? Mm. In many ways, you're exactly that, right? You become the translator. You just speak both languages.
Right. And you hope they understand. You hope they're speaking your same language.
They're probably really not.
Yeah. You create your own language, then is what ends up happening. So yeah.
I would love to open this up. We're getting some really nice words. I want to say thank you. I'm looking at the chat here, and you guys are too kind. But if you have any questions, I think we actually have just a couple more minutes. I have one for you, Christina, that's kind of aside from sort of where we are in our current state. I know you've thought long and hard about where comics is in the zeitgeist, where it is in popular culture, and how do we create something larger? How do we create a larger platform for everybody? Can you talk about what is it you think comics as an industry should be doing in order to grow the platform for everyone?
Think beyond the direct market.
Say more.
I think the direct market does a fantastic job, but I think that the direct market needs to be a little more open to other, and really try to partner with other types of stores that would make sense, and try to get them involved in selling their product also. And I've always been an advocate of having stuff go into mass market, into a Target, into a Walmart, because that's where the majority of people shop on a daily or weekly basis, that may never come to a comic shop, but they might if they pick up the first volume of something, and that's the only thing they can get at that store, at a Target or a Walmart, because they're never going to hold the deep inventory that a comic shop is going to. Then the comic shop actually benefits, hopefully, because then they start looking for anything beyond that. So I think that's a big part of it. It also, when you see it on a regular basis in a regular place, right? Like your Target or your Walmart or your whatever, even your grocery store, which I know is also a big problem. Because they don't want to carry it unless it's $10 or whatever, and it needs to take up about this much space. But I do think that when it becomes more regular to people, then a comic shop is even more likely to see those people, because it's something that's not foreign to them. It's something that's it's just within their own sphere of consciousness. I think that that's a big part of it. And I think that it wouldn't hurt to diversify some of these. We tend to have a lot of the same genres. And there are a lot of genres that are missing within the comic world. I say this all the time. There should be romance comics. There are definite slice of life comics, but there could legitimately be more periodical based ones. I think they generally are graphic novels, but I think those are things that do appeal to lots of people, and the people that read comics every week and every day. So, yeah.
I have one more question. I have one more. Then we have one from the chat. I just wanted to bring up this a hi from Rich at Walsworth. That reminds me, Walsworth is a printing company that has printers here in the U.S. And is becoming a much more important player as people are trying to bring some of the printing a little closer to home. Are you? I mean, I know that we're in a dynamic situation as far as tariffs go, but how are you thinking about tariffs as it relates to the rest of the industry, and how comics is going to deal with that going forward?
Well, I mean, luckily the printers have been like protecting some of the bigger publishers from these tariffs. So that has been helpful. I've really been just crossing my fingers on this one because I have nothing to provide or help in that respect. But what has happened is now, we have Walsworth, we have Sheridan in Kentucky who are printing books for major publishers and they're domestic. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm not saying the tariffs aren't bad because I hate those, and I think they're terrible for our economy.
Yeah.
Just on my own,
Understood.
soapbox there. What I do think is that the comic industry is always going to figure it out. Like we are scrappy. So like the publishers will figure it out. The printers are going to figure it out. The printers in Canada don't want to lose this, this money either. And especially because, they had their own implosion, after Quebecor and everything.
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that they're protecting what they do on a day-to-day and weekly basis as well. And I think the tariffs are eventually going to go away, or at least not be such a tremendous, problem for our specific industry. And, I hope that continues.
Our friends at the Comics Pals, I love this show. You should go on this show. You would actually have a good time. I think that they should reach out to you.
Okay.
How's Christina see digital comics position within the industry in the next 10 years? What do you think? Are digital comics a real thing?
I mean, they are. Lots of people read comics digitally, and there are a lot of people who just can't take on physical product anymore. But the thing is, like, until publishers really like make a concerted effort to make it a big deal, it's not going to happen. So they're trying to protect print, and I understand that. As long as they continue to protect print, though, I don't think digital's ever going to be a thing.
Yeah. Be interesting. Yeah. All right. And last one. And I do think this is a really great way for us to end. And I'd love to hear from you, Joe, on this one as well.
Oh, sure.
Distribution monopolies like Diamond seem to provide stability and convenience at the expense of innovation. What do y'all think a healthy distribution ecosystem looks like? So if you had to put on your hat and we have an ideal comics industry in 10, 15 years, right? Or 20 years from now, let's say 26 years from now, when Diamond would have been a monopoly. What does that look like? What does a healthy distribution ecosystem for our industry look like? Is it Christina owning everything? It's everything comes through you? No?
No, I think it's healthy if I can provide all of them, but I don't have an exclusive to all of them, right?
Yeah.
I have some exclusives, PRH has some exclusives, someone else has, but then we're all willing to sub-distribute to each other, offer wholesale. Right now I'm not going to, because now I have to maintain my own ability to stay in business. And so I'm not just gonna, there's a reason you get an exclusive, right?
Right.
It's not to immediately hand it off and allow your competitors to carry them. But I think that the most ideal would be multiple distributors being able to carry a very large variety and then competing in a way that those retailers can say, okay, this is the distributor I use for these, and this is the distributor I use for these. I never want to be a distributor that carries everything in the world the way that Diamond did. I will carry merchandise for my publishers, but I don't want to get into toys and posters and, all of those other things. I think it's better in general for us to have like a super healthy toy distributor that is separate And that, I think that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Joe, what do you think?
I'm very much in alignment with everything you said. You know, you talked about diversification of genre, diversification of distribution. That's when comics, I feel, it was at its creatively and also financially healthiest, right? And you can go back to certain areas and look at it. But I'm not here for nostalgia. My guiding light with all this, and one thing that keeps me back to comics, is that there's a young creator that grew up on Raina Telgemeier, they grew up on Amulet. They've graduated up to manga now, and they're starting to draw in their sketchbook. And they're really excited, and they're really good. And I want her or him to have a place to go. In 10 years, they can do their weird little independent comic and like change the industry. I've been talking for a while now. Someone, they're probably about 16 years old right now, is going to create the Easy Rider of comics, the Dark Knight Return of comics. And I just want to make sure there's an ecosystem for them. That's the seed I'm here to plant, and for them to be successful with it. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I think I completely agree with you. It's going to take a diversification of distribution methods. I do think the direct market will remain the hub and remain the place to go to. That's going to be the central base. But then all these other things line up to it, whether it's digital, whether it's, you know, there's been so much stuff in comics. Like, remember when digital was coming up? That's the thing that will save comics. That's the one thing. Never worked out that way. So to have all these different channels, to have the different forms of creativity, man, that's what I see. So I'm here to help build that platform and structure for that 19-year-old to succeed.
100%. You know, and I'll take that one step further and say that somewhere right now there's a young man who really wants to have open his own shop, and he has to convince his wife that she won't have to do anything.
And don't listen to him.
That's right.
Listen. He has good intentions, but that's not how it works.
I think that couple needs to they need their shot too, to create their community, to create their service, to become as essential as you and Cameron have become to our industry. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they grow as well as that creator.
Me too.
You know?
Yeah.
100%.
And I wish him the best.
Christina, Joe, I want to thank you guys. I was a little bit worried that we weren't going to have a good show whenever I lost Brian today, but man, you guys stepped up, and this might have been one of my favorites. This is really wonderful. And thank you everybody in the chat. Yeah. Seriously. Give any quick shout outs. Joe, why don't you go first? How can people find you? What should they be paying attention to?
They should be paying attention to The Future Is, distributed by Lunar in comic shops everywhere. Yeah, we're going on. You know, for me, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Joe Keating. We at San Diego Comic-Con. Those are the three primary places to go. And yeah, I just want to say, Adam, thanks for having me. Christina, it's great to reconnect. It's great to talk to you. I really appreciate all y'all are doing, not just for Recca, but just comics in general. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Christina, where can people find you and beg you for
I try to stay off social media as much as I can. I have my own little personal Instagram, and that's it. I am on Facebook just because I have to be, but I'm never on it. So yeah, no, you can't really get me. And it's okay. It's how I keep myself sane. But just visit your local comic shop. You know, today's Tuesday, right? Go tomorrow and pick up a comic you would never in a million years buy, and just give it a try and see what comes of it.
How about a little comic called The Future Is in stores tomorrow?
There you go.
$13.37, unless you find one of the 404 versions. It's going to be good. Kyle,
right.
What's up, buddy?
Well, I just wanted to, we talked about him earlier. Nikki is doing some crazy things on his art show. He's selling a Batman cover this week that I know I will have no chance to buy, but I will be in the comments bidding, as well as a Mr. Mix-a-Pitlick page.
Oh,
and
nice.
I just like to try to say that on the air, because every time I say it, I get a little closer to getting it right. So, the art show Friday night at 7, and then we love Lunar here on the EXP because they have a usable FOC section on their website. So Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern, Matthias Lewis and I will be going through this week's FOC offerings. So tune in for that, and we will have from Ghost Machine, whose hat is in the background, Maytal from Ghost Machine, whose book Sisterhood is coming out on the show. So awesome. Check that out. Joe was on it. It's a good show.
Yeah, it was fun.
Nice.
Well, once again, my name is Adam Freeman. This has been Comic Industry Insiders Live. We are over time, which means I'm actually late for my next meeting, and so is Christina.
Me too.
So we're going to go ahead and sign off. Make sure that you subscribe, pranadm.com, and hit the subscribe. And for our Prana Bullet, make sure you're back here next week at Tuesday at 2 p.m. where we'll all be professionals and we'll show up whether we want to or not. Thank you guys so much. This has been a really great time.
Yeah.
We'll talk to y'all soon.
Bye.